Okay, so Andrew, we've got reports here in the BBC studio of something that's happened inside the House of Commons chamber. Could you just enlighten us as to what has happened?
Well, basically, Daniel, we've got a situation whereby John Prescott has in fact been lodged in Mr. Speaker's square chair in Parliament over the other side. As you can see, we have a crane assembled to hopefully get him out and resolve Parliament back to stability.
Okay, so Andrew, any kind of constitutional issues which may have been breached today with this event today?
Quite frankly, Daniel, as you know, the accusations that have happened with John Prescott at this time during the week, we have a situation whereby comfort food is being devoured at an unearthly rate. Now, we've got to consider assembling a quango perhaps to ensure that comfort food is not devoured so quickly when accusations of whatever it might be, pornography, rapism, anything, it does not lead to comfort food because we do not know what consequences this will have on certain chairs around the country and other people quite physically being lodged in them.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrew.
Thank you.
Well, that'll but spell bad news for the meat pie industry. That aside, here's Tom Nissen who is an environmental specialist, and he has the environmental implications of such an event with Daniel Raleigh.
And here today with us we have a wildlife expert to report, to give us his expert opinion on the matter today. Thomas Nissen, what do you feel like the issues which could be raised with this issue today?
Well, my normal area of expertise is in beached whales, and there are some surprising similarities. A big problem is overheating. We understand that John Prescott was wearing a suit as well as, of course, a shirt and a vest even, which makes the situation quite dire. We've managed to bathe him in water to get rid of the excess temperature, and he is taking his food, so that's
that's reassuring to hear. Now, I mean, we've spoken to Andrew Marr here, our political analyst at the BBC. Constitutionally, with regards to beach whales in your area of expertise, what sort of similarities have legally? Well, animal rights, etc.
Exactly, yeah. Obviously someone is responsible for the beached whale, John Prescott not being held responsible for himself. We're looking to see whether or not this is Tony Blair, his boss, or his parents.
Okay, so you think there could be wider ideological factors, maybe sort of a ploy by New Labour to take over Old Labour, sort of narrowing of speakers' chairs, this kind of thing?
Well, this does of course play right into the hands of Tony Blair against the up-and-coming Gordon Brown situation there, in that John Prescott is very much of the left, Old Labour, but him being incapacitated in this way and embarrassed so many times over the same week will have dire consequences for
Okay, so in that sense there is a kind of an ideological link between wildlife and Old Labour, Old Labour being represented by the whale, the New Labour being represented by the shark. Okay, so thank you very much, Tom Nissen. Back to us.
And now we're seeing whether we can find Sir Daniel for the situation. Sir Daniel, please.
No, I'm very important,
Sir
man.
Daniel, I've got a BBC. We need to know, please. It will be a great help if you could tell us.
Okay. I'll give my statement. Constitutional issues have been breached. So Prescott is at this point stuck in the Speaker's chair. It is, in fact, a political issue which has affected the opinion polls. And sorry, no sir, not today, thank you very much. And it's quite unnerving because it is my chair, and Prescott has got himself stuck in it. And
if I was you, I'd be quite annoyed.
I am angry, and I won't hide my anger. I'm a man after all, and I just can't take it. Please.
Clearly, the person is too grieved, Sir Daniel, to say any more. We will leave the rest to your imagination. I can now see him weeping in floods of tears as he walks towards Parliament through the wall, trying to levitate and gravitate across the Thames. This is Alex Howard, BBC News, Westminster.
More on that story later. And now, Alex Howard interviewing some tall lanky bloke from France, aka Pierre Portemonnaie, aka Thomas Nissen, head of British Aerospace.
What we see beneath us is something you see on many riverways across the country. It's round, it's buoyant, and it's orange. This behind me might soon be the same if the legislation to make it spin faster and dangerously fly off its wheel and float down the Thames comes into action. Tom Nissen has the proposed idea of the wheels spinning faster. Now Tom, it's ridiculous for me that this thing is going to spin so fast that it could potentially fly off its axle and float down the Thames just because you want to encourage more people to come on it to have an exciting ride?
Well, we recognise that this is a widely held public concern, but let me put your mind at rest by assuring you that the wheel will not float if it falls into the river, it will sink to the bottom. So the myths about floating down the river entirely untrue. Fall off and sink.
Surely this is going totally against your argument and you're digging yourself a bigger trench in which you are now about to step in. If this thing does fly off, which has been calculated, there's a 60% chance it will. If it spins faster, which is what you're proposing, it will sink. What will happen to the people inside?
Well, first of all, I'd like to reject those figures. Although some people think it did come from our company, that's not actually true. It came from a subsidiary company.
Could you name the subsidiary company, Tom?
BA subsidiary.
BA subsidiary. Clearly this is a matter that must go further into detail. We are not sure at the present time whether the wheel will spin faster and whether it will, if it will float off, sink or float. This is Alex Howard, BBC News, The Embankment.
Next, Next and finally, we have Cecilworth St John Polevolter, who is MP for London North, and he's talking to Daniel Rollet about the state of London's pavements.
And with us today we have Thomas Nissen, Shadow Minister for responsibility for welfare of paving slabs. We've of course found a sort of crack in the constitution, as you might say. Could you explain this?
Well, that's a very witty pun actually, because what we have here could shake the bedrock of our modern way of life. Here, if you follow me down, we have two paving slabs with cracks in them. Now, this may not look like much, but this was raised in Parliament the other day. They actually let me in the chamber to raise this, which is the first time. I'm quite proud. And I raised this in front of the Prime Minister, and after continual jeering for about a minute, the Prime Minister was kind enough to respond and say that he doesn't really think that cracks the size of these are problems. Well, I think that's just laughable lack of caring on the part of the Prime Minister.
Yes, I mean, of course, taxpayers, but viewers today will, of course, be worrying somewhat about the cracks in the pavement. Taxpayers' money would be well spent on such issues.
Well, yes, and this is going to be a major part of the Conservative manifesto. That and going green is going to be the
But of course, going green.
It's the BBC.
And here you have it.
It's paving slabs need doing with.
Here you have it.
Are you the one?
No. Okay. Now you see here exactly the sort of problem we have.
I mean, lost property on the floor there. I mean, that's insurance claim at least, you know.
I know, and that's what, £100 maybe, potentially, if it was a different phone, one that's less rubbish. It's a serious issue. I better keep this back. It's a serious issue, and well, Tony Blair and David Cameron would do well to take it seriously.
And that's all for tonight, but tomorrow you can tune in where we'll be talking about some god-awful tripe concerning Sherry Blair's armoire. Meanwhile, after this programme, you can catch the lottery, but before that, the weather. It's gonna rain! Good night.